Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending tonight's meeting. So before we start the meeting, I would like to welcome the Director of Department Planning, Steve Lafferty, to give us opening remarks.
Thank you, Emery. Thank you very, very much. I want to just take a moment to thank everybody for finding time to really dive into some of the important issues that are facing and the Essex community. We know that being designated a sustainable community by the state of Maryland is an important step to helping the Essex community receive resources that are so vital to its own success. Over the years, the Chesapeake Chamber of Commerce has been able to obtain community legacy funds, for instance, which has been really valuable in addressing a number of the issues. But most importantly, it's about you and about the ideas that you bring to the table and working with the county planning staff and staff from other agencies. We know this is going to be a successful, although intense, effort. So appreciate again all of you volunteering your time, and I thank Emery for leading this effort. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you, Steve. So Sophie, next slide. So on this slide, you can see that tonight we have two main components we are going to discuss. This is two of the 6 topics for the sustainable community renewal plan process. The first part will be the environment, and the second part will be the transportation. So this is the main 2 parts we are going to discuss tonight. Next slide. So before we start diving into the 2 topic areas, 2 topics for tonight's meetings, I would like to acknowledge that those people serve on the work group. So on the slide, you can see a list of people. They are coming from the community association, chambers, and also community leader. They devote their time to their community to make them better for everyone. And the next slides. And also tonight, we also have some representative from county and state agency. On the slide, you can see who their affiliations. And also we have 2 nonprofit organizations who also present at tonight's meeting. So you can see that on the screen. Thank you. Next slides. And again, the purpose to Renewal the Sustainable Community Plan is because it's a state designated programs. They encourage and incentivize community across the state to practice sustainable and smart growth practice in their growth and revitalization goals. So maintaining the designation enable for eligible organization such as the 501c3 within those communities to access various state grants and loan programs. To the right of the slide, you can see there's a list of the programs that might be able to receive the fundings. Next slides. And this is like just quickly to show you that, just like Steve said earlier, the chamber has been work hard and received the several funding to improvement the community of access. So this is just the past few years, what type of grants they received. So give everybody an idea, the importance of renewal this sustainable community plans. Next slides. And this on the screen, you can see the existing boundary of the access community, sustainable communities. So this sustainable community plan was established in 2018, and so some of the action plan back that time was the Department of Planning working with the Eastern Border County Task Force to create some of the action plan, which we will review later of tonight's meetings. Next slides. And before we really dive in, we did have the kickoff survey post on the hub and also place physical paper phone in Access Senior Center and the library. So we will be able to receive 131 survey and 44 from the online and 87 from the paper phones. So here just show you the demographic of those who took the survey. So you can see to the left that 45% of the survey takers, they are residents of these areas. And the second one is they either own a property or they are active member of community organizations. And to the right, you can see over almost 58% of people who took the survey, they live in Essex over 10 years. So let's give you some background. Next slides. And among the 131 survey takers, almost 55% of them are aged 61 or over, which you can see on the screen to the left. And the next group is aged between 41 and 61. So that means that we still have a lot of work we need to do in order to reach out to younger populations. And the other one to the right, over 75% of survey takers identify themselves as white. And the second group is Black and African American, which is about 18%. And to the lower right corner, you can see only 3% of the survey takers identify to be Hispanics. So that is also give us some idea that which area we need to more try to work hard to reach out to different diverse group of populations, and also while maintaining the existing connection to those who has also involved their time in the community. Next slide. So now just give you the very background. So now we are going to give to the main part of tonight's discussion. The first part, we are going to focus on the environment. The next slide. So before we dive in, so we have some discussion we would like to do. So that's a two part. The first part, we were discussing the strengths and weakness of the Access community and in terms of environment. And after that, we based on the strengths and weakness we identify, we need to kind of discussing some of the potential outcome we would like to see in the next 5 years, and what strategy we need to use to reach those outcomes, and what are the partners we need to identify to support us to reach to these outcomes. Next slides. So here, just quickly, so when we review the next few slides, we will review the 2018 action plan, and you can think about whether they are still applicable to the existing condition. If not, how will you revise it? Or some of the statement maybe is no longer really applicable to the existing condition. Will you consider to remove them from the action plans? Next slides. And here, so before we review the 2018 action plan, so this is some of the key topics from the survey that we got from the survey takers. So they think about these are the important strengths they feel like that they have in their community of the XX. So they identify water or watershed area, parks, open space, and also grocery stores and also farmers market. So just give you eyes that this is some of the things they most priority from the survey we gathers.
Emery, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is that in order of priority, or that was just not in any particular order?
There's no particular order, just some of the key topic they mentioned repetitive. So we this is an open-ending question. So I just they repeat and mention about those things. So just no particular order, just the topic. Thank you for that, Will. Next slides. So the next slides, we are going to review 3 slides, which is from the 2018 action plans. We group them into several topics. So they have water. So here, there's 5 actions about the water and the next slides. And there's a parks they feel like it's important. So that has more specific statement related to that particular topic. And the next one is the stormwater management. And the next one, next slides. So they also talking about food, which is some reflect what the survey, the data we gather from the survey. And the last one is the programs and utilities. So this is a 6 topics that has been identified in the 2018 action plan. So now we review them quickly, and then you also receive the presentation prior to the meeting. So we are going to stop sharing the PowerPoint, and then we are going to the discussions. And here, if you would like, you can unmute yourself, you can raise your hand, so that way and when you try to describe your statement, make it more specific. What are you talking about? You relate to water, for example, or you relate to parks, green space, or about food. So, Sharon, what you want to kick off?
She's muted.
Give me a sec. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. On the strengths, but in particular, Emery.
Yes.
So the only one comment that I was thinking was, I know that in the prior, if we're comparing it to the prior area, one of the things that mentioned was Back River Restoration Committee. And there are some updates there from them as to what they have accomplished so far, but I thought also we should add as a strength Maryland Waterways Foundation there.
Okay, that's good.
So just a couple of the updates there for Back River Restoration. I know that in speaking to Desiree over there, that they have collected over 6.5 million pounds of trash. And we could add there about analyzing the water quality in Back River as one of their activities. And I think there should be some things under that Sam can give you under Maryland Waterways Foundation as well. Both are real strengths for the water section of what you're talking about. I think a lot of the other things under strengths, as far as I'm concerned, still apply from the prior one.
Thank you for the additional information. Sam, do you want to chime in?
We've been working, with the trash too. We collected 268,000 pounds just last year, and we've been working with the kids, educating people to better the shape than they found it. We work with the Boy Scouts and the Sea Scouts and the venturing crews. And the other thing that I would mention right along with this is somehow or another, you got to put in the waterfront restaurants and the yacht clubs and the golf course and the churches, the schools and the hospital. Those are all strengths that need to be recognized in this area. We have a lot of things most neighborhoods don't have. Not everybody has 2 airports and a train station and, the golf course and the waterfronts, just those things have got to be put in there someplace.
Okay, thank you for this part. And so anyone would like to provide more some strengths that we have in Essex community?
Sure, Emery, if I could chime in.
Yes.
I guess a couple of the big things that I see as strengths for Essex would be the strong history, and I think Lisa, as the president of the Heritage Society, could speak to that. One of the other things that in looking at the survey, there seems to be also, certainly as a strength, that there are residents here with roots and longevity. In terms of the community, there seems to be a strong sense of place. The survey that you had presented, I know that's a small sampling of Essex and the folks that we're sort of looking at here within this area, but one of the numbers that stood out to me was that the majority of the people there that were surveyed had said that they lived in Essex for 10 years or more. I think that for a community to have residents that have kind of made a vested interest, whether they're renting here for that time or they're living here with family for that time or they own a home in here in this area for that time, the fact that they've committed such a significant portion of time to the area speaks volumes to the strength that the area has and the different attributes that bring people to it.
Thank you, Kevin. So followed by Leah, would you want to chime in?
I mean, I'll tag on with what I see in our community is the strength in the community. I'm seeing that our community is having families who are, parents who are aging out of the house and going either into assisted living or retiring to Florida or down south, and their children are taking over their homes. So we're building that pride. So that's a definite strength here in this area, or at least in Sussex. I mean, I think, and I go with Sam on the fact that we have a lot to offer. We have a lot of strengths. We have, the waterfront. We have the accessibility to just about anything and everything that you need within, a short distance. Our parks do need a little bit of help. But, our strengths are basically our community, our pride in our area, and just overall just wanting to see the area flourish.
Thank you. So in addition to, I think the most of people address center on the water and parks, are there other strengths related to environment? Pat or Mike or Lisa, and welcome to chime in.
Maria, if I could just ask a question. When we're looking at the strengths, are they limited only to the areas that are part of the sustainable community designation, or can you look at things that sort of border in that?
I think you can be more broad, but more centered in the boundary of the existing sustainable community plan, because once later we are going to work on the outcome will be specific, only focus on those areas.
Okay. I guess one of the other strengths would probably be diversity in housing stock, that there is a diverse grouping of housing stock, be it apartments, townhomes, single family homes, condominiums, older homes, newer homes. There's a very broad mix of housing that is in Essex that sort of, and even within that sustainable community designation, that affords itself to all different people of socioeconomic backgrounds, and even sort of their own preferential backgrounds in terms of if you want something that's a more urban setting or you want something that's a little bit more suburban. Essex, and particularly the area that we're looking at, really sort of has a broad spectrum to meet those needs with that diverse housing stock.
Thank you, Kevin. But we will discuss about housing in the following work group. But now we focus on the environment. Just more
Gotcha.
specifically on the environmental parts. What's the assets or what's the strength of the assets in terms of environment? Yeah.
Gotcha.
Emery, I could
Yes.
chime in.
Okay, Pat.
I mean, I just want to reiterate what Sam said as far as the businesses we have on the waterfront that are a big part of what's going on. So that's definitely a strength for us and needs to be maintained. As far as my community is, I live on a peninsula, so I have parks on both sides of me, and it is as far as water goes, and that's actually established here in your strengths as far as Hawthorne goes with our walking park and things like that. And people do use it because I live right on the park myself. So we could use a little help with the area that used to be the basketball courts and maybe establish that of more playable areas. But people use it for different activities, soccer, things of that nature. They let their dogs run around inside there and things like that. So that's pretty much all I have. I'm just all for more green space. I'm kind of for that. Stop building and let's have some green space. So
I see that. Thank you so much, Pat. So on the 2018 action plan, I see on the program side they list the solar programs and some of the adequate water and sewer. So do you guys want to elaborate a little bit more what does mean the solar programs, or do you guys feel like this is not really applicable to current situation and you would like to remove them or still maintain them?
Emery, I would say it may be appropriate to remove that. I think that given a lot of the development that's taken place in the sustainable community designation with Waters Landing, with some other projects that have kind of come to fruition, that there doesn't really exist a whole lot more in terms of adequate facilities to, I guess, expand on what's there. I think that one of the things that would be an interesting benefit in terms of the environment would be the ability for, and again, it probably goes more to housing in the next topic that we'll discuss later, but the ability for like creative adaptive reuse for different things. So I guess the ability for environmental flexibility within the community for, you know, creative reuses of properties or things like that. And I guess when I say that, I mainly think that there's large chunks of land within that sustainable community designation that are sort of ripe for redevelopment, particularly where a lot of those older, aging World War II housing apartment complexes are.
Okay, thank you. So now I know some of you haven't really chimed yet, so but now I'm going to share the screen again. Now we are going to talk about the weakness of our communities. Sophie. Thank you. So here, the first slide, you can see that from the survey, the data we gather, they kind of outline a lot of weakness in this area. For example, pollution, trash, and lack of the infrastructure, and then there's like allow trees to be torn down, means continual destruction of the forest, means mentioned about earlier, the development issues, and lack of the some of the open space has been taken away, and they also specifically outline some of the locations not really looking well. So this is give you the idea what we gather from the survey. The next slides. So here, the next slides next two slides, we will talk about some of the issues. So even though the water is the access for access, but there's still some of the issues has been raised in the 2018 action plan, for example, coastal flood hazards, and maybe the stormwater management facilities, and also pollution to the waterways, and also aquatic wildlife in tidal bed Back River is impaired, and toxic contamination of fish tissues. So this is something has been raised and as point as a weakness. The next slides. And the next slides showing the other topics of parks and trees and also green infrastructures. This is somehow kind of reflect some of the data we gather from survey. They look like some of the green space has been diminished in some way. So that is a 2-3 topic we kind of group them based on the 2018 action plan. So what do you think? So now we are going to stop sharing, and then we will have a discussion about the weakness of the Essex. So Cliff, do you want to kick off this one?
Yes. God, where do I start? Couple of these issues I'm gonna leave for Sam, like the midges and the back river. I think one of our weaknesses is I don't know how to list this as a weakness, but where our elected officials don't support some of our issues we have. So I'm gonna list it maybe as zoning issues where we have, 8 drug clinics within 2 blocks, 5 pawn shops within 3 blocks. A while, I guess years back, property values declined along the boulevard and rent was cheap. And the landlords were willing to put just about anything in there, and we've ended up with saturation of businesses you don't really want.
Mm-hmm.
So I see that as a weakness, especially along the boulevard, which is the heart of Essex, where you have a concentration of businesses you don't really want at all, especially not a lot of them. And I think weakness in passing legislation to stop that, curb that, eliminate that.
This is a very valuable comments, Cliff, but I know we will discuss this one in the economy sections, but now we are more addressed on the environment, but we will take those comments, and we also will kind of included into our when we draft the action plan?
It does trickle down to the environment. When your community declines, okay,
Mm-hmm.
the environment around it declines.
That's true.
Very
So,
true.
mm-hmm.
That's why we're in the position we're in now.
Emery, if I
Okay.
could chime in for just a sec.
Yes,
One of
go
the
ahead.
weaknesses that I had noticed on the original, I guess, list that was there was a lack of green infrastructure. And I think it mainly pointed to like LED light fixtures and things like that. One of the things that I kind of wanted to point out with that, it was actually one of the things that we had suggested to try to incorporate when we had done the Essex commercial revitalization guidelines for properties that were happening there, was the inclusion of things like electric car chargers, green rooftops, things like that. That there's most of that's non-existent when you come into the 21221 zip code, but and that's certainly a weakness. And if it's something that we're looking to help turn that around and look for opportunities to improve upon, that's certainly something that would be an area for improvement.
Thank you so much. So the other things that they haven't really been addressed is the regarding water. So water can be, as we say, is a very, very huge strength of the community, but they also have some issues related to the water. Sam, will you want to chime in, or Shannon, or everybody want to chime in regarding this one? And also we have the EPS, Baltimore County EPS. Wesley, if you would like to chime in as well regarding water issues, that would be welcome. Yeah.
Emery.
Yes.
I just know for the part of Middle River behind my house, I mean, the quality of water has, there's certain species of fish that aren't back there anymore, and guys aren't catching. So it's only been primarily down to a lot of the white perch, yellow perch are gone. Used to be crabs back there at one point as well. And the snakeheads are an issue as well. Snakeheads are, I don't know how you want to call it, but they're snatching ducks right off the top of the water and things of that nature. And so, yeah, baby ducks, they'll just come up and steal them. Right. But I don't know how you can tame that or if there's anything to do about that. But that's kind of the issues that the guys that fish out back here and the community are dealing with.
Emery, one other thing that came to mind as Pat was talking was an issue of derelict boats. I know that particularly, Leah, you can chime in on this one, across from Cox's Point Park, kind of tucked off by, I think it's Thompson Boulevard that's back there behind like the Royal Farms off of South Marlin. There is a perpetual issue with derelict boats. We've actually had them down in my community. They were an issue off of Weber Avenue for a while as well. Which is certainly a weakness for the environment in that these derelict boats, it's sort of a weird no man's land to have either DNR or the environmental department or someone to go address those issues and get them out of there. Essentially, as long as it's kind of has current titles and meets some of the requirements that it can still sort of float and hold its own, or if it's moored kind of in navigable waters, there's not a whole lot that can be done to move it or do anything with it. And that sort of serves as an environmental issue in terms of the discharges that come from that boat, any of the gasoline, the paints and things that come with a boat as it deteriorates. There's also a deteriorating marina back in that same area as well that I'm sure Sam knows quite a bit about. And I think that it would be important to list those issues among weaknesses for environmental things.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Sam, will you like to provide more additional details?
Yeah, we've been working on those. Rick Metzger called me a couple of months ago, and the Marine Police visited that particular set of boats, and those people are being charged, and the county's been notified about trying to remove them. And we actually have 8 boats lined up as soon as they get their dumpster truck fixed to put in the dumpster from some of the abandoned boats. So we're working real hard to take care of that problem. We have a meeting coming up with Mr. Likens about the marina back there. She's an old lady and she's needed some help, but her time's run out. So we are addressing that at the present time. And the boats behind the farm store over there are being addressed. But you're absolutely right, Kevin. There's been a lack of law, and we've talked to Senator Salin and Rick Metzger and Bob Long about passing some new laws that actually have teeth in them that prevent some of this stuff from happening. They know who owns those boats, and nothing was done about it. They were allowed to sit there and fall apart. So we need to fix that. You're 100% right about that. They need to be addressed before they get to the point they are.
Thank you so much, Sam.
It becomes a taxpayer's problem at that point. They all knew who those boats were, and there's no law in place to take care of it. So we are working on that.
Thank you, Sam. So I have one of the issue when I was doing engage with community members throughout this process. They mentioned about air pollution. I know there's across the Back River, there's the plant, and it's not really direct within the boundary, but I want to check with you guys whether the smell will be the issue. If you guys can elaborate more, or you want to include it as one of the weakness of the community or not. So okay. So
I would say absolutely yes. I think that for many years that the smell there has kind of gone unchecked. That certainly is a major weakness in terms of the environment, also in terms of the economy. It's one of those things that kind of spreads across a couple different categories. That when you have the wastewater treatment plant, the odor that emanates from that's certainly a major weakness and detractor from a whole slew of different things, in both Essex and the surrounding areas to that. And it certainly is something that if we're looking for plans to the future on things to address and to work at and articulate, needs and concerns about, that certainly would be one of the important things to put on that list.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for that. So what are the other committee member feel about this?
Emery, as far as that category is concerned, I think you're talking not just about the smell from the wastewater treatment plant, but also the issues with the water pollution from the treatment plant and whatnot as well. That whole huge issue there.
Okay, good. So now I would like Sophie to bring up the survey. Now we already talked about the strength and the weakness of the access. And now we are going to move to the next discussion about the outcome. But before that, I want to show you guys what we gathered from the survey. So we use the 3 topics, 3 outcomes, which we will see in the next 3 slides for this kickoff survey. So the one is the improve water quality, and the other one is the improve and maintain the county park area and the increased tree planting. So what do we see? Almost 52% of people identify improve water quality is their top priority. And the second, followed by that, will be improve and maintain the county park areas. So this is to give you the idea what the public says. And so the next slides. The next slides, we are going to 3 outcomes, which is listed in the 2018 action plan. So here on this slide, you can see the improve and maintain the county park areas. And then so we have like a 3 strategy. How do we improve or maintain the park areas? The next slides. The next slide will be talking about the tree canopies. And also we have three strategies in order to improve the tree canopy in the areas. And the next one. The next one is improve the water quality. So this is the 3 outcomes we use as the survey question for the kickoff survey. So the improved water quality was the top, almost 52%. And then the second one is improve and maintain the park areas. So now you have the slides. So we are going to discuss, do you think these outcomes still applicable to this renewal process? We maintain it, or do you guys want to kind of alter a little bit outcome or adding additional ones?
I mean, for environment, this is Mike. For environment, obviously the water is sort of our greatest resource, but also at the same time, sort of the greatest challenge, because you have Back River, which is basically most people would look at as almost an unusable body of water. And when you come into Essex across the bridge from over where the water treatment plant is, you come in and it's not a beautiful looking body of water or environmentally appealing. So you immediately enter into Essex and you have this body of water that should be the biggest attraction. And in fact, it's something that sort of turns people away. You have the businesses back there that don't really have an attractive look. We mentioned waterfront restaurants as an asset earlier, but all of those waterfront restaurants really that are attractive restaurants aren't even in the sustainable community area. So definitely, to me, I think our water is a high priority.
So Mike, so if this is as the assets and also the weaknesses, so is any strategy that we can try to improve the water quality to make waterfront more accessible, usable in the future?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because I think the water treatment plant has always been sort of in the area considered sort of the biggest culprit of polluting that waterway there. I don't know if that's still true or not, if that's fact or just legend, but whatever we can do to make them more responsible or to help out. And then of course you do have the businesses along that Back River area right there. So if there's something we can do to help them to either approve the curb appeal there and also protect that waterway. I don't know, if there's wastewater ponds that need to be installed someplace, if that's something that we need to start considering. Obviously, I'm not an environmental expert, but I certainly would like to see that body of water, which is right there and sort of a focal point as you come in, be a much more attractive point to Essex.
Thank you so much, Mike. So Wesley, do you have any projects from the EPS now might implement in this area to kind of tackle the water quality issues? Do you want to, if you have something to say?
I would have to look into our project list to see what's happening exactly in this area. This is a very well-defined space, and so I'm not sure exactly what's going on in this area. Our planning usually takes the form of a larger sort of watershed approach. And so it would be a little bit difficult to say exactly what's going on in this area at this very time. But it's something that I could provide, or I could have somebody provide that to you guys separately.
Okay, thank you so
There
much.
are, and I'm sorry, yes, there are assessments that we're doing right now to fill in the application for the renewal of the sustainable communities area. So we are doing some of that analysis as during our work time. Yeah.
Kevin?
I think one of the things that was listed in the initial plan from a few years ago was proper maintenance at county parks. And I know there's been a lot of efforts in looking at where a lot of the money was awarded. A lot of focus was on Renaissance Park, which is certainly a big asset that exists within the sustainable community area. I think that as we move forward, it would be important to not only advocate for proper maintenance of those parks, but also for capital improvements and sort of different things to make those parks kind of stand out. So you have, the parks in Hawthorne that Pat was referring to earlier. You have Cox's Point Park. I believe there are a few other parks as well that are sort of hidden throughout that sustainable community area. They're a little bit smaller, but there's certainly room for improvements, be it to make them a dog park, enhance the shoreline at one of the waterfront parks, to fix or rehab a pier at one of the parks, to do new pavilions at Cox's Point, or something that makes those areas not only a amenity that the community can be proud of, but adds to their usability and improves their accessibility for the community.
Thank you, Kevin. So Shannon?
I would agree with what Kevin just said. And I think it would be nice if we mentioned the parks specifically as to which ones should be included there for capital improvements and whatnot. I also think under the category of the implementation partners, I would add Maryland Waterways and community associations to that group on
Thank
that
you.
particular outcome. If we could go back just for a second about outcome number 3 about the water quality. I know that strategy A had to do with, in the last one, about stormwater management requirements.
Mhm.
And I saw that Jordan is in this meeting, and I wondered if he might be willing to take just a moment to talk a little bit about State Highway Administration and what's being done in regard to the Eastern Boulevard project.
Jordan?
Hi, Sharon. So I don't know if maybe we would, is there a transportation segment in this, I guess, later on, or kind of
Yes,
didn't?
later on we will talk about transportation. Do you want to wait until when we discuss the topic to address? Yes.
I guess I might kind of defer that to Sharon, I guess, because her and I have been working for probably a few years on some of the park amendments that we were going to kind of coordinate together based on what she was working on and then what our project itself would in tune. So it might go a little bit better with that section. That way it's more of an overall transportation aspect.
Yes. Okay.
Unless Sharon decides different, I'll let her kind of make a
No,
decision.
I think putting it all together is fine. The only reason I brought it up is because this one specifically mentioned stormwater management. So I know there's a lot more to that project, however, and if you'd like to cover it there, that'd be fine.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
we can.
I'll just get into it a little bit, I guess, since we are on the environmental. And then before I get into more of the, I guess, traffic related items, we'll let that go to the next segment. So as Sharon alluded to, so the SHA currently has a project under design from Mace Avenue to Seelig. So to kind of complete that next segment that we started a couple of years ago, we're going to be doing a similar thing. We're partnering with Baltimore County. They're going to be upgrading the water line in that segment. They're currently under design, and we're waiting on some plans from them probably here at the end of the year. But as Sharon alluded to, a component of what we are working on is it's an item that our district maintenance staff has been monitoring for years on end. The segment from Old Eastern Avenue to Seelig Avenue is very prone to flooding. And as part of this project, we're actually upsizing part of that drainage. I don't have the plan set in front of me here right off the bat, but it is a very large pipe installation that we're going to be installing to kind of grab the majority of that flow that basically just ponds there right now and then kind of sneaks in behind the gas station there and going towards the old Verizon building. So that's one of our items. This is also in a critical area as identified by the state. So we've been doing our initial coordination with our critical area commission to make sure any of the proposed improvements that we're working on are not going to cause any adverse effect. And so as part of our improvements, we did kind of trigger a little bit more than their threshold value. So we're looking at some intermediate pavement reduction areas, mostly around the Marlin Avenue area. There's a large island there and then a little bit above that median area. So I think right now we're targeting that island area to kind of see what some pavement removals we can do. Going more towards, I guess, Back River itself is, there's nothing that we're targeting very much in there just because the drainage flow kind of just goes down before Marlin there and then kind of goes up. And then obviously where we're doing the pipe increasing between Seelig and Old Eastern there.
Thank you, Jordan.
Yep.
So Sharon?
This is just a follow-on question to that. In that one outcome, it says that to increase the drainage areas for stormwater management ponds, and it said that current coverage is at about 11%. Is there any particular goal that you're trying to reach there, Jordan?
No, so we're not looking to do large-scale pavement removals and facilitation of ponds. That would be way beyond SHA right away, just in that area, just as densely as it is. We would be buying, property to basically put in remediation facilities. And our project as itself just qualifies as basically a maintenance project in terms of SHA. So we're not looking to do pavement removals. But as part of our normal design process in critical identified areas, so like floodplains, wetlands, things like that. If you impact it, there are triggers and things that you have to do to mitigate. And the CAC item came up, and in order for us to get our permit at the end of the day, we have to address it. They basically have to kind of give them the identified areas that we're going to do and the amount that we're going to be removing. So in terms, that's our, I guess, one way we're going to kind of help reduce some impervious out there. As part of our normal permitting process, we are putting a new sidewalk piece in along that old Eastern Avenue, the island where they, I think you and I were looking at for that park a couple of years ago. So we are putting a sidewalk on there because I know that was an interest of Baltimore County at some of our TAP meetings, as well as SHA's pedestrian safety item. So we have to sort of do some mitigation of the new impervious in this area. So everything kind of falls in line with that.
Thanks so much, Jordan. I guess just in general, if we're putting that type of thing under progress measures with the stormwater management ponds, it would be nice to have that, we've got the current coverage amount. It would be nice to know to what levels we're trying to get that achieved, so that under our progress measures, we do have something that is measurable.
Thank you, Sharon, for pointing out this. So before we move to the transportation, I would like to, we have the representative from the Recreation and Parks from Baltimore County. Molly, will you want to say something? And then followed by that, we also have Neighbor Space. Phyllis, you can also say something about the parks or open space before we move to the transportation. Thank you.
Sure, I'll speak very briefly. I know a couple different parks were mentioned and amenities that would be desired to be improved. So far, like since the last plan, there was a new pavilion at Cox's Point and enhancements there. And I think pavilion replacements may continue, as well as playground replacements and new turf field at Fields at Renaissance Park. So we are hoping to continue maintenance and capital projects at some of these parks in this region.
Thank you, Molly. Phyllis?
Thank you, Emery. I'll introduce myself really quick. I'm the new executive director for Neighbor Space of Baltimore County. We're a nonprofit land trust, and we own or have conservation easements on 21 sites around the county. We only work within the growth boundary within the urban-rural demarcation line. We currently only have one site in Essex, close to Chesapeake High School, but we're always interested in if there's a vacant lot or a certain parcel or property that you think would be a good candidate for a pocket park or conserved woodland or basically open space, feel free to reach out. Our mission is to have a park and open space within walking distance for all our Baltimore County or within the Erdl residents. So I know there's definitely work to be done in Essex, as in the rest of the county. So feel free to reach out. I'll put my email address in the chat.
Thank you, Phillips.
Hey, Emery, before we move on, can I say something?
Yes, go ahead, Leah.
Okay, so, I mean, dealing with the environment, I think one of the bigger issues, especially that I see at Cox's Point Park, is holding the park employees accountable down there. Not getting trash picked up down there, not having things properly taken care of is impacting our environment because all of that trash is blowing right into Back River. And this has been an ongoing battle that I've been fighting for probably the past 3 to 5 years to try and make sure that, I mean, you can go down there any given day and there's trash everywhere, and I can watch the employee that's working there sit in her van and just watch what's going on instead of getting out of it and doing something.
Okay, thank you, Leah. Kevin, you want to say something before we move to the next section?
Yes, sir. Just wanted to, I guess, expand on Phyllis's comment about parks and particularly pocket parks. I think that within that sustainable community area, there certainly exists a real opportunity for acquisition of pocket parks. It's something that's not prohibitively expensive to, have the county acquire small, parcels of land, or have the county assist, organizations like Neighbor Space to acquire small parcels of land to be able to meet that goal. of having a park that's walkable to, from most residences with inside the Erdl. But I also think that it would help to strengthen the stability of the communities within that sustainable community designation and also help improve some of the environmental issues that we face.
Okay, so now I know we are running out, but Lisa, we want to talk about the relocated cube, but the Heritage of Society is working on there's the pocket pot on the Eastern Boulevard. Do you want to talk about the project? Because I think they relate to the open space.
Sure, I can talk about that in a minute. I guess everybody knows that the cube was relocated in order to make way back in June for the new landmark sculpture, which is beautiful down there at right at the tip of Sussex, I guess you would call that, at Eastern and Virginia Avenue. But Cliff has graciously been storing the cube for us, and we're working with the county on getting that cube moved over to the Heritage Society. So in our courtyard there, we have a nice space with benches and some landscaping, and we're gonna kind of like make that an extension, an outdoor extension of the museum, but anybody can come in anytime and sit down, and hopefully, we'll have that area nice and clean, get some signage, get some new lighting, and get the cube in there.
Thank you. So you know the Molly here and also Phillips here, so you guys may be able to kind of networking a little bit throughout this meeting. So now we are going to move to the next topic we would like to discuss tonight. Sophie? So it will be transportations. Next slides. Next slide. So you all know about the way we are doing the discussion. We talk about the strengths and weakness of the access, but make sure focus on the topic transportation. And after that, we will talk about the outcome and strategies and identify potential partners to support those strategies in order to achieve those outcomes. Next slides. So we know the rules, so I'm not going to repeat this one. So you already have the PowerPoint or whatever, so you know what we are going to do. So here on this slide, you can see the information we gather from survey. They only identify 2 topics they feel like that should be the strength of the XX, which is easy access to all major state highways such as 702 or 695, or access to transportation. So this is just what has been identified. Next slide. So the next 2 slides will be the strength has been listed in the 2018 action plan. So the first one is traffic network. So which is already similar to what has been identified. So the kickoff survey, we have transportation network, park ride lots, and multimodal transportation access, and also access to the waterways. And there's also strength of the bike, a pedestrian. The next slide. And also have parkings and roadways. So some of them was not really there in detail. So if you guys will be able to provide your input, how do we revise them, make it more informative, the way they kind of expanding the strength of this area in regarding transportation. And also we have some county representative and the state agency presence in the meeting. So feel free, if you have any projects in this area, please feel free to chime in and to provide information. Okay, so what are the strengths of the access in terms of transportation?
I don't think that the strengths have really changed much. I think that, certainly the accessibility and the location of Essex is the sustainable community designation within Essex. Its proximity to pretty much everything, be it DC, Annapolis, Baltimore City, BWI Airport, Harford County, Towson. It's a very sort of central location, which provides you access to rail, air, highways, you name it, the ability to, or boat, the ability to travel, and, certainly is there and exists. I don't think that there's really too much more in terms of strengths. That can really be said or can be added to what we have.
So Pernell and Dr. Trafana, Shatay, you haven't really say something. If you guys have some comments, please feel free to chime in. Mike, will you want to say something? Is there any strength regarding transportation in the area?
I think you've hit on it, just the access to 695 and the 95, and as Kevin stated, just the central location in Baltimore County and Maryland.
If you guys, if this is does everybody agree with these two topics, the strengths more like the traffic network and also the transportations, other strengths we can identify it. Pat?
I agree with Kevin. I think, I agree with that assessment. I think that's probably our biggest strength. I can't really see improving on it, like you said.
Cliff?
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Now,
And,
if
excuse me, Emily, there is a comment in the chat box from Sharon saying that the 2018 strength, adequate on-street parking. She said this was a subject of debate during the tab for on-street and public parking, and that a parking study was recommended.
Okay. Okay. Anyone want to chime in regarding this? I cannot look, seems to see the chat. Yeah.
I just wanted to make a note of that because I think when we get to the weaknesses, that even though it's saying that on-street parking is sufficient, I think public parking might be one of the categories for consideration under weaknesses.
Yeah, so yes, Sharon, thank you for pointing out this one. That was back to 2018. So I'm not sure, do you guys agree currently have adequate on-street parkings? Or do you guys, if you don't feel that's applicable to the current situation, do we remove that comment?
Are you talking residential street parking or street in general?
Yeah, in general.
I know in my neighborhood, this parking is bad because there's so many cars per household now. Consider when the neighborhood was built in the mid-50s. So you have 4 to 5 cars to some households at this point, or an average of 2 to 3. So after a certain time at nighttime, it's really hard to get a spot on our street. So as far as that goes, yeah.
Expound on what Pat is saying, that's an issue that we've kind of faced, in terms of any new developments that come up. The county has a parking calculation that they use for, new developments of so many cars per home, but even that parking calculation is not realistic to what today's average family has. Today's average family, if you have, parents and 2 kids, or their parent and a kid, or 2 kids or something, almost everybody has an automobile. Sometimes you have a work car, sometimes you have sort of a project car, a hobby car. I think that maybe one of the weaknesses would certainly be residential on-street parking, and that a way to address that would certainly be a study, or even the ability to have some sort of legislation or something that addresses more adequate parking facilities within the sustainable community area.
So you guys more take on the residential street parking. What do you guys think about the commercial street parking?
I think that to Sharon's point, I think that a parking study is needed. I think that would certainly be important. I think that one of the big issues with the downtown Essex and the commercial district parking is that for its current state, it's probably appropriate because it's nowhere near what it should be in terms of being a vibrant commercial district. If it were to be in the state that we would all really love to see it in, which would be a bustling, populated downtown commercial district, I don't know that what's there is viable or sustainable to accommodate, sort of what our end goal is for that area. And I think that having that parking study that Sharon mentioned, and looking at that in terms of making sure that there is going to be something to address that issue when we look at future development there and future projects there and things like that is absolutely imperative.
Thank you.
And Emery, what I will say is that what I'm finding in my community, because we back to Eastern Boulevard, and we have some businesses within, like, the unit blocks, like Margaret, whatever, Taylor, and so forth, is the businesses are using my residential parking as their business parking. And that's creating an issue, especially now that the one parking lot is closed off. And Woody's has nowhere to park. The top end of my community is usually blocked in parking by Woody's. So we definitely need to figure out something on parking for these businesses and get them proper.
So in this case, I will remove the strengths regarding parking back in 2018 action plan, because based on the discussion, I think the parking now is not really strength for Essex. Should become the weakness right now. There's not have adequate parking currently in the community. Do you guys agree with that? Do we remove this strength?
I agree for my community and for my end of Eastern Boulevard.
Okay. Thank you. So Sophie, we want to bring up the slides.
I believe there is a question from Pat. Or at least Pat raised his hand.
Oh, I would say I agree that it should be put in the weakness area.
Okay, thank you, Pat. So as you guys know, just like the previously water topics, now the traffic is also, the parking is the same thing. So the data we gather from the survey, you can see they focus on certain topics. For example, the sidewalks not really well, and then traffic cause a weekly accident, and then the parking problems in inadequate parkings, and roadways need to reserved. So this is all the issues and traffic congestion. This is some of the topics based on the survey. So put this one on your mind. So let's move to the next slides. So next slide, there's only 3 topics based on the 2018 action plan. So here the weakness is about the Eastern Boulevard streetscape in disrepair, and also the traffic speed issues, and also lack of trail and bike lanes in the area overall. So now what we are going to discuss today, since we discussed strengths, now we are going to talk about the weakness. And we know there's parking has been one of the weaknesses as we discussed earlier. What are the other weaknesses you feel you are encounter in our community?
I would definitely go with the speed, the aggressive driving, the lack of enforcement. To address the issues with speed, it's almost like everybody feels like it's a free-for-all, and we're on the Daytona 500 out there. The Eastern Boulevard, your average speed is probably 50 to 60 miles an hour. Those people fly through there. We've had several very serious accidents in our community over the past year and a half, because of the speed of people going down to Cox's Point Park. So definitely speed is still a weakness, and lack of enforcement, and just the aggressive driving altogether, just a general disregard for the laws.
Thank you, Kevin.
I think one of the other big things that is a weakness is that I guess the commercial parts of the sustainable community district are not pedestrian friendly. One of the things that I remember that they had brought up and discussed in the TAP was that, there's certainly a need, if you want to be able to have that downtown commercial corridor thrive, as Leah said, slow down the traffic, but also sort of create pedestrian refuge islands, create it so that it's a safer destination for people to walk. Most of those areas right now are very car centric and very car focused, as opposed to being pedestrian focused. The same would be true for Back River Neck Road. Leah and I a couple weeks ago had dinner at Pizza John's and wanted to, run across to Miss Twist to get milkshakes for dessert, but it was sort of taking our life in our hands as we crossed Back River Neck Road to do so. I think that being able to find a way to make those areas a little bit more pedestrian friendly would certainly be a way to address the weaknesses that we have there.
Mike, do you have anything regarding the transportation, which is considered as a weakness of the access?
Well, working with the senior centers, I think there's just a lack of, we have the buses, but the buses you have to be able to get to Eastern Boulevard to get access to. So for seniors in particular, that's a point of weakness. You have things like the circulator in Towson, but Essex doesn't have any sort of specialized transportation to get people around in our area.
That's a good comment. Thank you so much for that. And Cliff, do you want to talk about the streetscape of the Eastern Boulevard?
We're still working to try to improve the sidewalks. I mean, we've put some light poles in and some things we have done, but they are looking, we just had a meeting recently. They're taking another look at getting a cost to replace all the sidewalks. Not all the ones that are poor with the brick in them. So there is some plans to do something. The initial plan was what I called patchwork. And we kind of let them know we didn't want patchwork. We've had patchwork for years. So now they're, from what I understand, and Sharon speak up, is they're going to come back with a price to replace most of the sidewalks down there, at least between Mace and Woodward.
Okay, thank you.
Sidewalks are bad. They did do a, just mention the speed of traffic, which surprised me. They just did a study down there for us. They put them trailers out. And they said the average speed, Sharon, was 39 miles an hour. And it wasn't really, speed wasn't really an issue compared to anywhere else around the county, which surprised me because I'm down along the boulevard and I tell you they're doing 90 at sometimes, but the statistics proved otherwise. But you have the businesses along there, and somebody had mentioned that'd be nice if you had some out front restaurants. Well, it's hard to walk along there and talk and hear each other. So the noise from the traffic is a problem. And I don't know what you'd ever do about that. Even if they were going slow, the trucks, the buses, there's just a lot of noise coming off them that you're not going to have no street front restaurants, people eating outside.
Shannon, you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, just to build on what Cliff was saying, that first bullet under weaknesses under the Essex Boulevard streetscape, I think there are some things that have improved significantly in that we had some of the bus stops, the brick was falling apart and we had them fixed. Cliff and Sam fixed all the broken benches there, and the county replaced all the light poles with new LED lighting. So I think there are some things there that can come off, but I think the sidewalk conditions, there may still be some other bus stop conditions that still need help there. And then the tree pits are still an issue. What they are talking about, just to be clear, is not necessarily a replacement of sidewalks, but there was streetscaping that was done years ago with brick pavement, and they're looking at trying to figure out what to do with the bricks, whether to just put them back in place where they're coming apart, or improve those particular areas of the sidewalk. And I think here again, there will be sidewalk improvements that are going to take place through the SHA street project as well, mainly related to ADA compliance, I believe. Jordan, if you want to chime in on any of that, feel free.
Yeah, so we're taking a little bit of a different approach than we did on the first segment of 150, where, as you guys noticed, we did full sidewalk reconstruction and curb and gutter. And as Sharon alluded, this next segment, We're doing mostly just targeted sidewalk improvements. Most of it's just as it's a part of our requirement of all our projects. So that'll include, driveways but the majority area, because this is a pedestrian area that SHA is very much involved with a couple of different entities with Baltimore County and internal reviews as well. So there's things where, if we're upgrading the signals, for the push buttons and the associated ramps around that, and then seeing what additional elements we can do. I'm going to say we're also looking at where the bus stops are currently located. Everybody knows the pavement out there is usually kind of the worst pavement in the roadway segment. So at the areas where the existing bus stops are located, we're looking at putting a concrete bus pad in. That's going to give it more structural for the lifetime out there. So you're not going to have the grooves that are in there right now. And we're also looking to, over the couple of years, we've been trying to realign some of the curbs in these areas so that the bus isn't really straddling the lane itself. So the bus will, in a lot of these areas, take that full lane of traffic. So people aren't going to try to scoot by on them. That's pretty much, I guess, the gist, Sharon. Does that tie enough in line? I found my plan, so I'm just sort of looking right now. Yeah, it's just target approaches, and we are going to try to maintain in these areas where the brick is to kind of replicate it within the ramps that we reconstruct as well.
Thank you, Jordan. Pat.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up as far as the speeds go in our neighborhoods. I know in Hawthorne, it's an issue just about on every street that we're on. I mean, I live in a cut through with a big curve on it. The speed limit is 25, but there's, people are just flying up and down the street, and the enforcement is hard to get because of the amount of officers that we have at this time. But I also had a traffic study done on my street, and the criteria that they use really isn't a reality as far as what's going on. You only measure it certain times a day. And it has to be an average. They count the number of cars plus the average speed. So where they placed the strip to measure it really wasn't a good spot. And I fought with the county. I'm just trying to get speed humps out here, but I see all these other neighborhoods like in Dundalk and down on the ABC streets, they got a speed hump every 10 feet. But it's such a struggle with the county to try and get some type of speed enforcement, even if it is humps or something like that, where we are. So I have an issue with that. Plus, we have a lot of accidents on Eastern and Kingston, which is the entrance and exit of our peninsula. And in addition to that, they're trying to build a car wash on that corner as well. So I think that's something that needs to be addressed. As far as, I don't know if we can find a solution for that, but that's a weakness for us.
Thank you, Pat. So now we have some, yes.
It's me again.
Okay, Leah, go ahead.
So real quick, so to Cliff's point about the speed indicator signs and saying that our average speed is 39 is what the county is saying, I think they should calibrate the signs because I drive the speed limit on Eastern Boulevard and they fly past me like I'm sitting still. Pat, you'll be at the meeting tomorrow. I can talk to you about speed humps. I can help you with those. I have some ins and outs for that. Will you be at the MRCC meeting tomorrow?
Is it a board meeting?
Oh, that's right.
It's a board meeting, so I'll be one next week.
All right, I'll shoot you my phone number.
All right, cool. Thanks.
All right.
Okay, so Sophie, will you mind to bring up the presentation? Thank you. So we have been talk about the strength and weakness of the assets in terms of transportation. So here, so we use the 2018 action plans. They outline 4 outcomes for transportation, and then this is the result of the survey. So you see the first one on the top is the complete streetscape of the Eastern Boulevards, and followed by that is address traffic speed and also address poor bus stops. Okay, next slides. So I'm going to go through the 4 slides, which is the same thing. So there's 4 outcomes listed in the 2018 action plan. So complete escape the Eastern Boulevards, and there's a 3 strategies, and then followed by that is implement the further phases of the Eastern Bike and Pedestrian Access Plan. The next one is address poor bus stops conditions, and the next one is one of the top issues, address traffic speed issues. So which has been discussed as one of the weakness of the Essex. So now I'm going to open for discussions, but before that, I would like, since we have the Eastern Boulevard was a state highway, so I would like to have Kim Levesey from the SHA to talk about that, and if you have some information to share with the group at the meeting. And after that, we have the Fred Libet, I think they're from the MTA. So maybe you can talk about bus stop issues. And I think the Jordan would like to talk about the East and Western corridors, the things. So that's the things, if you guys can really provide some information to the work group before they start talking about potential outcomes.
Yeah, hi Tay. Thank you for that. Sorry, my phone disconnected and I joined back really quick again. So you want some information on the buses, right?
Yes, and also traffic speed, because the Eastern Boulevard is a state highway. So
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. So I'm not sure what the current speed is out there. I think it's 45 or 50 currently. And what we would have to do, usually that goes through the state police, or we have to coordinate with it. We're not very likely to reduce or do anything with the speed limit, but our traffic section couldn't be here today, and they had another night meeting, but I told them if anything came up with the speeds or anything like that, I would divert that back to them. So is there a way I can do that and then kind of get back to you?
Yeah, so I mean, let's see the committee whether they have any issue would like to raise regarding the traffic speed. How is there any way to kind of resolve the problem?
Okay, what we do is we usually do like traffic calming, traffic calming kind of versus the speed limit. But there is like an agency that the whole state highway kind of goes through, and they meet, I think it's every 3 months that they kind of come up with these kind of issues. So I'll make sure that Aaron Kuhn, and I think you might know Kimon as well, that work with our traffic group in District 4, and I'll make sure that that's one of your guys' priorities, so we can talk about that.
Thank you, Kim.
Okay, thank you.
Fred, do you want to
Sure. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Great. Apologize for a little bit of a dark room that I'm sitting in. I had to use a colleague's computer whose camera worked, and apparently their lights don't. So I am with the Office of Planning and Programming here at MTA, and I think just listening in, I think what's most interesting for the folks here on this call is probably what's coming ahead in a lot of MTA's planning with the east-west corridor. How familiar are folks with what's going on there? Everybody familiar or not?
How about the work?
So the regional transit plan, and then from there they identified 30 different corridors, and they did a feasibility study where it became really apparent that we could get a lot better transit through the east-west corridor, and there's, in order to just even start asking the questions as to what do we need to know, and we came up with several different options. I believe there were 7. Those options were simply there to start the process of getting us to think about what would work, what wouldn't, what type of mode, meaning would it be heavy rail, would it be light rail, Could it be a bus rapid transit system? And using those options just to generate questions and figure out what we don't know and what we did, and then be able to move into a new phase, which we are starting now, which is called the alternative analysis. And that's where we take what we learned in this past piece of study and really start to dig into a little bit closer to what might be out there. And so I think the important thing is if you go online to MTA's site and you see and you look through and you look at some of the 7 options that were just used as this question generating, that those are really retired. Those aren't going to happen. They're not a prescriptive, this is what's going to work. We're actually just using that as a means to get at a better idea. So that's, I think somebody just threw it in the chat there, a great link to it. So those are the alternatives I'm talking about that are now retired, and we will be moving into a situation where we're able to mix and match from what we learned to come up with what is actually the best option. And as a major part of that process, we'll be reaching out to the community to hear what they think about it. So that's, I think, one of the most important things is to be able to get folks in Essex to give us their thoughts.
Thank you, Fred. So we have like a 4 outcome list in the 2018. So streetscape of the Eastern Boulevards, and then further phases of the Eastern Bike and pedestrian action plan, and then address bus stop conditions and address the traffic issues. Do you think that this is still applicable to the existing conditions, and or do you guys want to add new potential outcome that we can put into this renewal process? How about the traffic study? Would it be considered to address speed issue as one of the strategy? Anyone want to chime in?
Talking about the speed issue throughout the whole sustainable community, or?
Yeah, it's more focused on the sustainable community boundary area.
I mean, I'd say, I think everybody's going to say yes, because it sounds like some of you are having problems in your neighborhoods, or we're all having problems in our neighborhoods with speed. But
so do you guys want to revise some of the strategy for particular outcome, or we just, this is still applicable to the existing conditions? Jalen?
I think that a lot of the things that were listed under the
transportation
outcomes there, I think that they're still applicable. I think also we should take a look at what some of the TAP recommendations were and perhaps incorporate those into that type of thing. In outcome number 1 about the streetscape, we were talking about strategy A, about getting support for funding the streetscape and whatnot. I think maybe we can just update some of that with what's already been done, but what still needs to be done. And then outcome 3 about the bus stop conditions. We've already addressed that a little bit, but I know that it was in the county executive's priority level letter about transportation from Trade Point Atlantic up through Essex and into Middle River across Route 43. We've also had a couple of recommendations that whether it's a little commuter bus or whatever, but that it stay on Eastern County, not coming out from Baltimore City, which I think there was some opposition to, but going just from Trade Point Atlantic up the county through Middle River and possibly even to Rosedale, especially now that CCBC has the trucking school down at Trade Point Atlantic. And I think another extremely large employer is MedStar Franklin Square that would be interested in utilizing that kind of thing.
So do you think that in this case, do you think that we want to revise the outcome because the outcome 3 was address the bus stop condition? Would I more expanding to more like a bus route, as Mike earlier talking about might have this kind of similar circular that has been in place in Towson area. So that would be not just the bus stops, maybe the circulation, the service of the bus route.
Yeah, I think it's a separate outcome. I think it's something that's different.
Okay.
And then I guess last under outcome number 4, I know just speaking on behalf of the task force, we would like to see the county approve the installation of the 2 speed signs we purchased to at either end of the commercial corridor on Eastern Boulevard, which would just notify people of what their speeds are. They are solar powered signs, and we'd like to see them get installed.
So it's like, okay, sign, okay. Thank you, Sharon. Other people? Pat, you have your hands up. Do you want to say something?
Just outcome number 4, you know, I think it's pretty much going to be the same. I think, you know, prioritize the speeding through Essex, as Leah was mentioning, and Cliff, and, you know, in some of our neighborhoods that we could have some type of enforcement or try and work with the police department, or if we can get, you know, maybe retired police officers or something to come in and do enforcement if the precinct is thin on having somebody out there, because they only have like one person to the whole precinct for traffic enforcement. So I think speeds are definitely an issue in the neighborhoods and on the Eastern Avenue and Eastern Boulevard. So
thank you so much.
I don't think they need to be revised. I just, you know, I think it would stay the same.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anything? Anyone else? If not, now it's 7:32. Sophie, will you mind to bring up the slides? Thank you. So before we close tonight's meeting, I just want to remind everyone, thank you again for attending this meeting, not just to the work group, also to the state and county agency representatives. So we have the next 2 upcoming work group meeting will be, the second one will be on November 1st, which is the next Tuesday. We'll be discussing housing and land use and local planning. And the third work group meeting will be on November 15th and focusing on economy and quality of life. And again, so after this meeting, we will have the topic area survey focused on environment and transportation. Based on the discussion of tonight's meeting, we will summarize some of the key components, and then we will post survey on the hub, and they will be go live November 1st, which will be next Tuesday. And then we also will have the paper phone survey located at Essex Senior Center and Library. So if you know someone, please, once we have the survey go live, we will send a link to everyone. Please help to spread the words, and then urgent community member to take the surveys. Next slides. And again, thank you so much for your attendance. So here you can use the QR code to, if you haven't really logged into our Sustainable Community Hub, please, we encourage you to use QR code to take a look at what the information has been posting on the hub. And tonight's recording will be also posting on the hub. So if you have some community member, they would like to attend it, but they couldn't really make it, you can also send them the link once it's posted, and they can watch the recordings. And if you have any additional suggestion, comments, or concern or questions, here is the email address. You can reach out to me. It's Essex and Baltimore County MD.gov. Thank you again for your attendance. We really appreciate, and we're looking forward to see you the next work group meeting. Thank you again. Night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.